The difference between a person who is truly able to move on after a breakup with gratitude and even more value than before, even despite the relationship not working out, and a person who might even seem recovered on the surface, but is still stuck in thoughts about what happened, and most likely carrying the same issues into our next relationship. So the difference between these two people is in these 5 things. And pretty much all of them are connected to the process of going through disappointment. This is what defines whether you can move on with more value or lose value in the process. It's what determines whether you can move forward into the future or if everything inside will stay filled with the past. Number 1, letting go of idealized versions. But not even idealized version of your partner, but idealized version of yourself. Detaching means letting go of fantasies about how the other person should be or how great the relationship could have been. We often subconsciously believe that person will help us become our ideal selves. When things don't work out, the pain comes not from rejection, but from clinging to an idealized version of ourselves. Number 2, seeing rejection for what it is. It is really tempting to interpret an ended relationship as a personal rejection. But it's not us who gets rejected, it's our needs that get rejected. In that moment, an internal void is exposed. It's the lack that I feel inside, something I don't yet know how to create for myself. And I try to fill that void through the relationship as if it's my only salvation. The pain does not come from the rejection itself, but from the exposure of that inner deficit. Number 3, facing disappointment versus devaluing the relationship. Detachment always involves going through disappointment. And this is exactly where things tend to get stuck. The first reason for this is that disappointment is usually confused and substituted with devaluation. Disappointment connects you with the reality, and devaluation separates you from it. Processing disappointment, despite the initial pain of unmet expectations, allows you to integrate the experience, which adds to your self-worth and brings you closer to your goals. On the other hand, devaluing the other person and the experience, in fact, strips you of your self-value as well. And yes, this is how the defense mechanism of devaluation works. It acts as a quick numbing tool to avoid the pain of unmet expectations, but the cost is self-value and remaining out of touch with reality. Disappointment has a purpose. It helps us identify where we have been out of touch with reality and frees us from unrealistic expectations. It directs our focus toward whether our authentic needs can truly be met in the current situation. And if not, it allows us to move forward to places where our needs can actually be satisfied. Devaluation is a rejection of reality because it didn't align with our expectations. What we repeatedly do with the outside world eventually becomes our strategy towards ourselves, and vice versa. If we devalue a relationship, we can take in the good that was in it. By rejecting the reality of that relationship, we also reject the lessons and value it could have brought us. Whether we exclude or reject anything, it ends to keep resurfacing in our world. Devaluation is a rejection of reality because it did not align with our expectations. What we repeatedly do with the outside world eventually becomes our strategy towards ourselves, and vice versa. If we devalue a relationship, we cannot take in the good that was in it. And by rejecting the reality of that relationship, we also reject the lessons and value it could have brought us. Whenever we exclude or reject anything, it ends up resurfacing in our world. Devaluation also prevents us from recognizing the pain of unmet expectations. And instead of processing that pain, it gets projected onto the world, becoming emotional baggage that gets passed from relationship to relationship. Number 4, processing disappointment for detachment. So why does the psych go for devaluation instead of disappointment? And how can you catch this moment? Going through disappointment is only way to achieve true detachment. This is the only way to either complete the scenario if the experience keeps repeating itself, or leave the experience behind you with gratitude and emotional freedom. Disappointment can be processed only if you can embrace uncertainty. Processing it is difficult because it brings us back to a moment of uncertainty where we don't know what the future holds. Change is scary, and we desperately try to hold on to how we want things to be. We don't know what's coming next, but inside we start imagining the worst case scenarios and the most negative outcomes, which causes us to feel anxious and uncertain. Disappointment forces us to face how little control we truly have over reality. But not having control over realities, that does not mean things will turn out badly. In fact, it can often be better than anything we could have expected, especially if we allow ourselves to process complex feelings like disappointment. Doing so helps us leave situations where our needs cannot be met and opens us to the opportunities that reality presents. A sign of mature psyche is how well it can handle uncertainty. Number 5, acceptance is the key to detachment. The ability to go through disappointment is connected to the ability to accept reality. Acceptance of reality is the foundation for changing it. Well, it makes sense. You can change something that you do not accept or something that you keep resisting. However, acceptance does not mean stopping your feelings. Acceptance is not about approval. It is not about submission or indifference or tolerance. It's not about stagnation. It's not about masking discontent or self-deception when you just say, I'm fine with it, when you're really not fine with it. All these are forms of false acceptance. To accept someone or something means to see it in its entirety and respond to it as a whole rather than reacting to isolated impulses or labels. Acceptance does not mean understanding. While understanding can make acceptance easier, it's not a necessary part of it. And the desire to understand and dig for reasons promises relief and an illusion of control over the situation, but it often turns into an ongoing struggle for certainty, draining energy day after day. Acceptance simply means acknowledging that things are the way they are and that future planning now needs to be based on what you now know about reality. However, if there is resistance to accepting reality, it leads to feelings of being small or not good enough because it shifts the focus to thinking, I didn't do something right or I didn't try hard enough. If you can't reach an agreement with someone, it does not mean you have to give up on your needs or you have to give up on the possibility of future happiness. It's okay to let go of the hope of attaining the relationship you wanted with a particular person while still finding ways to satisfy your needs elsewhere. You can live alongside the situation without drama or suffering, recognizing both your own boundaries and the other person's boundaries. You may also discover that life doesn't end where you can get what you want. In fact, this can lead to new opportunities for growth, and you can move forward without letting the past hold you back.